Do you think space is the last frontier? Think twice. An autonomous vehicle has just achieved the impossible, descending 11 kilometers to the bottom of the Mariana Trench, the most hostile place on Earth. What this Russian submersible, recorded in absolute darkness, has left scientists frozen and the military on alert. Today, we show you the images that reveal the true terror of the abyss. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell before we dive in. The ocean is not simply a body of water. It is a hostile, living entity that keeps silent under a pressure of 1,000 atmospheres. For decades, humanity has obsessively looked to space, searching for answers about our place in the universe among the distant stars, ironically ignoring that the true alien resides in our own planetary basement. There is a premise circulating in the darkest corners of the collective imagination and in conspiracy forums, one that speaks of divers finding Soviet relics frozen in time, steel coffins where history abruptly stopped. However, the reality that recently emerged from the depths of the Pacific is even more unsettling, complex, and fascinating than any legend of submarine ghosts or Hollywood script. It was not human divers who touched the bottom. Human biology, with its air-filled lungs and fragile bones, would instantly collapse under the weight of the ocean long before seeing the ground. But a mechanical avatar, an extension of the Russian will designed to survive where life is impossible. It descended into the eternal blackness not just to observe, but to conquer. What this submersible brought back were not just abstract geological data, but images and proof of concept that redefine our understanding of isolation and modern warfare. The news, reported by the BBC and international agencies, about the autonomous vehicle Vityaz D reaching the bottom of the Mariana Trench, has uncorked a technological and existential Pandora's box. By analyzing the images and the nature of this mission, we encounter something that left military experts and scientists in a state of silent alert. The confirmation that extreme exploration no longer needs human heartbeats. We are facing the birth of a new species of explorer, immortal, tireless, and terrifyingly efficient. To understand why this finding has such a reverential and symbolically charged atmosphere, we must look at the name painted on the drone's hull: Vityaz. This is not a name chosen at random by Kremlin bureaucrats. It is a historical invocation, a spell of national pride. In 1957, at the height of the Cold War, when the world watched the launch of Sputnik with fear, the Soviet Union was also waging a silent battle downward. The original Vityaz research vessel was the one that measured the maximum depth of the Mariana Trench, setting a record of 11,022 meters. For decades, that name was synonymous with the USSR's scientific supremacy in the seas, a fleet that mapped the world while its rivals were barely beginning to get their feet wet. The new Vityaz D for demonstrator, is not a shipwreck found by accident, but a calculated technological rebirth. It is the frozen submersible of the premise, not because it is physically trapped in ice, but because it represents an ambition that was geopolitically frozen since the fall of the Berlin Wall and the collapse of the Soviet Union. During the 90s and 2000s, the Russian submarine program suffered the rust of abandonment. But this new Vityaz demonstrates that the machinery has thawed with unexpected power. The Russian Foundation for Advanced Research designed this vehicle to do what no human can do without a massive and expensive life support capsule: operate with total autonomy in the hydrostatic hell. The dive into the Mariana Trench is not simply a long journey. It is a challenge to the physics of materials. To understand the magnitude of the Vityaz D's achievement, we must visualize the forces at play. At 11 kilometers deep, the pressure exceeds 1,000 atmospheres. To put it in perspective, Imagine an adult African elephant balancing on the tip of a single human finger. That is the force acting on every square centimeter of the submersible's hull. If there were a defect in the construction, a microscopic air bubble in the metal, or a poorly sealed joint the size of a hair, the result would not be a slow leak. It would be an instant and violent implosion, compressing the vehicle into confetti of titanium and syntactic foam in a fraction of a second, faster than the human brain could process the sound. Unlike historical bathyscaphs like the Trieste of Jacques Piccard and Don Walsh in 1960, or James Cameron's Deep-Sea Challenger in 2012, the Vityaz carries no humans. This eliminates the need for life support systems, air, heating, and escape capsules, allowing for a more radical design focused purely on mission and resistance. But its true innovation, and what generates concern in the West, is its cognitive independence. Traditional deep-sea submersibles are usually ROV, remotely operated vehicles, tethered to a mothership on the surface by a kilometer-long umbilical cable. This cable is their lifeline. It transmits power and video in real time and allows a human with a joystick to control movements. But the cable is also a chain. It tangles, it breaks, it creates hydrodynamic drag, and it limits the radius of action. The Vityaz-D cut the umbilical cord. It uses an artificial intelligence-based control system that allows it to think and navigate in an environment where GPS signals do not penetrate, and radio communication is impossible. It is a solitary mind in the darkness. Herein lies a crucial aspect often overlooked: digital solitude. When the Vityaz dives, it enters near total radio silence. The electromagnetic waves we use for our phones and satellites die a few meters under salt water. Therefore, the Vityaz cannot call home for instructions if it encounters a problem. It must solve it alone. Its onboard artificial intelligence system is what truly differentiates this machine from a glorified torpedo. It uses advanced pattern recognition algorithms to see with sound. Through hydroacoustic sensors, the drone creates a mental map of its environment in real time, dodging rock formations and adjusting its buoyancy to the millimeter. This ability to make autonomous decisions in a hostile environment is what military experts are scrutinizing. If the Vityaz can navigate the Mariana Trench alone, the same technology can be used for drones to sleep on the seabed for months, waiting for an acoustic signal to activate and attack enemy infrastructure. The autonomy of the Vityaz is not just a scientific tool. It is the prototype of future underwater warfare, a war fought by patient and invisible machines. On May 8, 2020, the Vityaz-D began its freefall towards the Challenger Deep. The descent is a journey through the layers of oceanic reality. First, the epipelagic zone, where sunlight still dances. Then, the mesopelagic zone, or twilight zone, where creatures begin to generate their own light through bioluminescence to hunt or hide. Finally, the drone entered the abyssal zone, and, subsequently, the Hadal zone, named after Hades, the Greek god of the underworld. As it descended, the water temperature dropped close to freezing point, remaining liquid only due to the immense pressure and salinity. It is a world of liquid cold and absolute silence. Here, there are no violent currents or the noise of waves, only a deathly stillness that has remained unchanged for millions of years. For hours, the Vityaz fell through this void. Its internal sensors constantly monitored the integrity of the hull, while its navigation algorithms calculated its position using inertial methods, listening to the echo of its own sound bouncing off the trench walls. The tension on the control ship on the surface, the Foti Krylov, must have been unbearable. Without a real-time video cable, the crew was blind, waiting for the machine to return from death. It is the underwater equivalent of NASA's 7 Minutes of Terror when a rover lands on Mars, but extended over hours of aquatic uncertainty. Let's pause for a moment at this crushing depth. Imagine being down there, in total solitude, with the pressure of 1,000 atmospheres upon you. Would you dare to go down in a capsule, or would you prefer to leave the job to the robots? Comment, "I'm going down," or "No way" below. And hey, if you're enjoying this content about mystery and science, smash that like button and subscribe right now. Let's keep descending. When the Vityaz touched the bottom, registering a depth of 10,028 meters, its powerful LED spotlights cut through a darkness that had not seen light since the formation of the Earth's crust. The IV, high-resolution cameras began recording. The premise suggests that the images revealed something terrifying. In cinema, our science fiction-conditioned mind would expect a prehistoric monster, a surviving megalodon, or the ruins of a lost civilization. But in the reality of high geopolitics and science, what the Vityaz revealed is perhaps more unsettling for its tangible and environmental implications. The first thing the images showed was absolute desolation. A lunar landscape of gray sediment, composed of marine snow, the remains of microscopic organisms that have fallen from the surface for eons. But in the midst of that nothingness, the clarity of the 4K video revealed life. Giant amphipods, shrimp-like crustaceans, and translucent sea cucumbers crawling across the muck. These organisms are extremophiles, creatures that have evolved to thrive in conditions that would crush a battle tank. However, there is a detail in the recordings that is often omitted but adds a layer of modern horror: the presence of microplastics. Even there, at the most remote point on Earth, previous missions have confirmed the existence of human contaminants. That the Vityaz, a pinnacle of human technology, encounters human garbage in the most inaccessible place on the planet creates a dystopian image. The monster at the bottom is not an ancient beast, it is us. But the main focus of the international analysis was not ecology, but the demonstrated operational capability. The Vityaz did not just touch the bottom and go up. It performed a complex choreography. It mapped the terrain with sonar, took seabed samples, and, in an act of surreal and calculated political theater, deployed a physical object. The Vityaz's robotic arm placed a commemorative banner on the bottom of the world celebrating the 75th anniversary of the Soviet victory over Nazi Germany in World War II. Visualize the scene. 11 kilometers from the surface, where there is no air, no light, no spectators. A Russian robot plants a flag celebrating a 1945 war. It is a powerful, chilling, and profoundly human image in its arrogance. It reveals that the reach of Russian state power no longer has physical limits. The terrifying thing inside it is the technology itself, a system that can execute propaganda, military, or scientific missions in the most inaccessible place on the planet without direct supervision. This act transforms the Mariana Trench from a scientific curiosity into a strategic chessboard. If the Vityaz can plant a flag, it can do other much more dangerous things. It can plant passive listening sensors to track the movements of rival powers' nuclear submarines, creating an invisible surveillance network. This is no small matter. The world's most powerful nations maintain fleets of nuclear submarines that operate in the deep ocean, such as the U.S. Navy's Ohio class or Russia's Borei class. The ability to monitor these silent movements from the seabed would be a game-changer in naval intelligence. Furthermore, the Vityaz's proven capability is a direct threat to global communications infrastructure. It can manipulate or cut submarine fiber optic cables, the invisible arteries that carry 97% of the world's internet traffic and trillions of dollars in daily financial transactions. The physical and financial fragility of this network in the face of an invisible autonomous threat is a nightmare scenario for Western defense and economic planners. The ocean floor is also targeted for its resources. It is strewn with polymetallic nodules, potato-sized rocks containing manganese, nickel, cobalt, and rare earth elements essential for manufacturing electric car batteries, smartphones, and advanced defense technology. It is estimated that the Clarion-Clipperton Zone, CCZ, an area of the Pacific, contains reserves of nickel and cobalt worth over $1 trillion. In a world where terrestrial resources are being depleted and trade tensions are rising, the ability to send fleets of autonomous drones like the Vityaz to harvest these resources without risking human lives grants Russia, and whoever dominates this technology, an incalculable strategic advantage in the 21st century economy. The deep sea represents the next great scramble for resources, and the Vityaz D is a definitive statement about who intends to get there first and how. The Vityaz's discovery is, therefore, a silent warning fired from the abyss. It tells us that the ocean is no longer a neutral sanctuary. The opaque cloak of the sea, which once concealed the movements of submarines and protected pristine resources, is becoming transparent thanks to these robotic eyes and digital ears. The race is no longer just for space. The Star Wars has its counterpart in the Seabed War. The Vityaz has effectively fired the starting gun for this new, silent arms race in the Hadal Zone. The idea of divers finding a submarine is a powerful metaphor for our atavistic need to discover hidden secrets. The Vityaz acts like those mythical divers, but elevated to technological power. It fascinates us because it touches a primary nerve, the fear of the unknown, and the deep, thalassophobia. By seeing the drone's images illuminating the seabed with its artificial lights, we feel that we are violating a natural taboo. We are seeing something that was not meant to be seen by eyes born under the sun. The psychological impact of this descent is enormous. It proves that even the deepest, most primordial darkness on our planet is not immune to human technological reach. The experts were left speechless, not out of supernatural fear, but out of technical amazement and strategic unease. The Vityaz is living proof that the era of heroic manned vehicles, although romantic, is coming to an end in terms of pure efficiency. Manned missions require prohibitively expensive and complex support ships, like the $20 million Deep Sea Challenger project. We no longer necessarily need a James Cameron risking his life in a steel sphere. Now we send the machine. And the machine is not afraid, does not suffer from claustrophobia, does not tire, does not need to breathe, and most importantly, does not forget its mission or betray its creators. This eliminates the human factor, which is always the weakest link in extreme environments. The interior of the Vityaz did not contain frozen human corpses, as a gothic horror movie would suggest, but something colder and more calculating. Silicon circuits, machine learning algorithms, and high-density batteries capable of resisting the eternal cold. The titanium hull itself is a marvel of engineering, built to withstand pressures of over 110 MPa, megapascals. It contained the future of naval warfare and exploration, a solitary artificial intelligence making execution decisions in the absolute darkness. The Vityaz D mission is a milestone that blurs the line between science fiction and geopolitical documentary. We did not find a rusted Soviet submarine with a frozen crew. We found something more powerful and lasting. The spirit of Soviet innovation reincarnated in an immortal machine capable of defying nature on its own ground. And in that silence, a new era has begun, one where the witnesses of history have no pulse, but they have a perfect memory. The Vityaz has returned from the darkness, but the questions are just beginning. What does it mean that an IA can patrol the bottom of the world without human control? Are we facing the start of a submarine Cold War, or the golden age of exploration? I want to read your craziest theory in the comments. If this trip to the bottom of the sea gave you chills, share the video with your friends and be sure to subscribe. See you in the next mystery.